are the great enigmas of the Sphinx. You entered the lodge between two columns. They represent the two which stood in the porch of the temple on each side of the great eastern gateway. These pillars of bronze, 4 fingers breadth and thickness, were, according to the most authentic account, that in the first and that in the second book of Kings, confirmed in Jeremiah, 18 cubits high, with a capital 5 cubits high. The shaft of each was 4 cubits in diameter. A cubit is 1 foot and 707 1/1000ths. That is, the shaft of each was a little over 30 feet 8 inches in height, the capital of each a little over 8 feet 6 inches in height, and the diameter of the shaft 6 feet 10 inches. The capitals were enriched by pomegranates of bronze, covered by bronze network and ornamented with wreaths of bronze, and appear to have imitated the shape of the seed vessel of the lotus or Egyptian lily, a sacred symbol to the Hindus and Egyptians. The pillar or column on the right, or in the south, was named, as the Hebrew word is rendered in our translation of the Bible, Jachin, and that on the left, Boaz. Our translators say that the first word means, "he shall establish," and the second, "in it is strength." These columns were imitations by Hubrum, the Tyrian artist, of the great columns concentrated to the winds and fire at the entrance to the famous temple of Malkarth in the city of Tyre. It is customary in lodges of the York Rite to see a celestial globe on one and a terrestrial globe on the other, but these are not warranted if the object be to imitate the original 2 columns of the temple. The symbolic meaning of these columns we shall leave for the present unexplained, only adding that entered apprentices keep their working tools in the column Jachin, and giving you the etymology and literal meaning of the 2 names. The word Jachin, in Hebrew, probably pronounced Yachin, and meant as a verbal noun, he that strengthens, and thence firm, stable, upright. The word Boaz is Baaz, which means strong, strength, power, might, refuge, source of strength, a fort. The prefix means with or in, and gives the word the force of the Latin gerund roborando, strengthening. The former word also means he will establish or plant in an erect position, from the verb kun, he stood erect. It probably meant active and vivifying energy and force, and Boaz, stability, permanence, in the passive sense. The dimensions of the lodge, our brethren of the York Rite say, are unlimited, and its covering no less than the canopy of heaven. To this object, they say, the Mason's mind is continually directed, and thither he hopes at last to arrive by the aid of the theological ladder which Jacob in his vision saw ascending from earth to heaven, the 3 principal rounds of which are denominated faith, hope, and charity, and which admonish us to have faith in God, hope in immortality, and charity to all mankind. Accordingly, a ladder, sometimes with 9 rounds, is seen on the chart, resting at its top in the clouds, the stars shining above it. And this is deemed to represent that mystic ladder which Jacob saw in his dream, set up on the earth, and the top of it reaching to heaven, with the angels of God ascending and descending on it. The addition of the 3 principal rounds to the symbolism is wholly modern and incongruous. The ancients counted 7 planets, thus arranged: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. There were 7 heavens and 7 spheres of these planets. On all the monuments of Mithras are 7 altars or pyres, consecrated to the 7 planets, as were the 7 lamps of the golden candelabrum in the temple. That these represented the planets we are assured by Clemens of Alexandria in his Stromata, and by Philo Judaeus. To return to its source in the infinite, the human soul, the ancients held, had to ascend as it had descended through the 7 spheres. The ladder by which it reascends has, according to Marsilius Ficinus, in his commentary on the Ennead of Plotinus, 7 degrees or steps, and in the Mysteries of Mithras, carried to Rome under the emperors, the ladder, with its 7 rounds, was a symbol referring to this ascent through the spheres of the 7 planets. Jacob saw the spirits of God ascending and descending on it, and above it, the deity himself. The Mithraic mysteries were celebrated in caves, where gates were marked at the 4 equinoctial and solstitial points of the zodiac, and the 7 planetary spheres were represented, which souls needs must traverse in descending from the heaven of the fixed stars to the elements that envelop the earth. And 7 gates were marked, one for each planet through which they pass in descending or returning. We learn this from Celsus in Origin, who says that the symbolic image of this passage among the stars used in the Mithraic mysteries was a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, divided into 7 steps or stages, to each of which was a gate, and at the summit an 8th one, that of the fixed stars. The symbol was the same as that of the 7 stages of Borsippa, the pyramid of vitrified brick near Babylon, built of 7 stages and each of a different color. In the Mithraic ceremonies, the candidate went through 7 stages of initiation, passing through many fearful trials, and of these the high ladder with 7 rounds or steps was the symbol. See the lodge, its details and ornaments by its lights. You have already heard what these lights, the greater and lesser, are said to be, and how they are spoken of by our brethren of the York Rite. The Holy Bible, square, and compasses are not only styled the great lights in Masonry, but they are also technically called the furniture of the lodge, and as you have seen, it is held that there is no lodge without them. This has sometimes been made a pretext for excluding Jews from our lodges, because they cannot regard the New Testament as a holy book. The Bible is an indispensable part of the furniture of a Christian lodge, only because it is the sacred book of the Christian religion. The Hebrew Pentateuch in a Hebrew lodge, and the Quran in a Mohammedan one, belong on the altar, and one of these, and the square and compass properly understood, are the great lights by which a Mason must walk and work. The obligation of the candidate is always to be taken on the sacred book or books of his religion, that he may deem it more solemn and binding, and therefore it was that you were asked of what religion you were. We have no other concern with your religious creed. The square is a right angle formed by 2 right lines. It is adapted only to a plane surface and belongs only to geometry, earth measurement, that trigonometry which deals only with planes and with the earth, which the ancients supposed to be a plane. The compass describes circles and deals with spherical trigonometry, the science of the spheres and heavens. The former, therefore, is an emblem of what concerns the earth and the body, the latter of what concerns the heavens and the soul. Yet the compass is also used in plane trigonometry, as in erecting perpendiculars, and therefore you are reminded that although in this degree both points of the compass are under the square, and you are now dealing only with the moral and political meaning of the symbols, and not with their philosophical and spiritual meanings, still the divine ever mingles with the human, with the earthly the spiritual intermixes, and there is something spiritual in the commonest duties of life. The nations are not bodies politic alone, but also souls politic. And woe to that people which, seeking the material only, forgets that it has a soul. Then we have a race, petrified in dogma, which presupposes the absence of a soul and the presence only of memory and instinct, or demoralized by lucre. Such a nature can never lead civilization. Genuflection before the idol or the dollar atrophies the muscle which walks and the will which moves. Hieratic or mercantile absorption diminishes the radiance of a people, lowers its horizon by lowering its level, and deprives it of that understanding of the universal aim, at the same time human and divine, which makes the missionary nations. A free people, forgetting that it has a soul to be cared for, devotes all its energies to its material advancement. If it makes war, it is to subserve its commercial interests. The citizens copy after the state and regard wealth, pomp, and luxury as the great goods of life. Such a nation creates wealth rapidly and distributes it badly. Thence the two extremes of monstrous opulence and monstrous misery, all the enjoyment to a few, all the privations to the rest, that is to say, to the people. Privilege, exception, monopoly, feudality, springing up from labor itself, a false and dangerous situation which, making labor a blinded and chained cyclops in the mine, at the forge, in the workshop, at the loom, in the field, over poisonous fumes, in miasmatic cells, in unventilated factories, founds public power upon private misery, and plants the greatness of the state in the suffering of the individual. It is a greatness ill constituted, in which all the material elements are combined, and into which no moral element enters. If a people, like a star, has the right of eclipse, the light ought to return. The eclipse should not degenerate into night. The three lesser, or the sublime lights, you have heard, are the sun, moon, and the master of the lodge. And you have heard what our brethren of the York Rite say in regard to them, and why they hold them to be lights of the lodge. But the